Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the show today. Today we're going to talk about a little oversight that I had of my own, even after doing these videos and going into detail explaining this stuff so you don't make stupid mistakes, you don't end up disappointed. I end up having one of my own, and I found that I had a problem with my raid. My raid broke, and this is going to be a little bit of a quiz for you. And to give you a good fair shot at this, if you've watched the series up to this point, we're going to go back in time and look at some old thumbnails and talk just really briefly about what we talked about in those episodes. And we'll do it right after we roll title. Well, we got the title out of the way. Our first video that we want to talk about over here, let me hit it, was from part 2 of the ASRock website and the main board Z890 Tai Chi Lite versus the PG, the Phantom Gaming Nova Wi-Fi. This is a thumbnail from that show. That's episode 6 of this year of series 15. And here's where we were talking. We were comparing them back and forth because I had recently watched a video by, I think it was Hardware Unboxed, who had just, hey, we've looked at 50 birthing person boards, and they got down to these two, and he said they're the same. One's $50 more than the other one. You know, why is that? They're the same board, and in fact they weren't. We dove into that in a 2-part series because it went long. Part of it is in the audio chip that are different between the two boards. There's also something interesting going on with this one, the Phantom Gaming, in the way it will bifurcate. And you get an extra, do I still have it? Yeah, I haven't even moved it off the desk. You get an extra card here, an expansion slot card. And what's unique about this expansion slot card that comes with the Phantom Gaming is it will bifurcate, the BIOS will bifurcate into by 4 slot. In that 16 physical slot is a 4 lane slot, but it will bifurcate into individual lanes. So you could stack up 4 NVMEs in there and get, it would be very slow. I'm sure if Windows would operate on it, you could get a little RAID running off of that dude. It'd be slow because you're only running, you know, 1 lane at PCIe, is that 3 or 4? Whatever the speed it is. Yeah, I guess it's 4. Whatever speed that is. You would get that, and it would be about like having some SATA drives probably in function. It'd be very much like that, but that was one of the differences. The other thing we talked about in a newer episode, let me bring it up, we talked about specifically the bifurcations, talking about the boards, you know, because you can't just get a board because it will physically fit a slot like on that Phantom Gaming, because there's only 4 lanes there. So yes, you could look at it and go, that's a 16-bit slot, except it really isn't a 16-bit slot. It's physically 16-bit, but whatever cards you put in there, if it was a 16-lane card, 16-bit card, it would need to bifurcate to at least a by 4. So we spent some time talking ad nauseum about the bifurcation and make sure we get the right expansion cards for a slot. Well, what was our next one? That was, what episode was that? That was episode 7, a must-watch PCIe expansion slots and drive boards thumbnail. Well, it was long enough just the way it was. I didn't get to everything. So that brought up the discussion of the RAIDs, building arrays, different types of RAIDs. I wanted to build a RAID 5 so I could get speed from the striping, but still have some drive fault error, which is where the parity comes from. So we talked about that in that episode. This one was what? Episode 8, RAID, stop bugging me over hard drives. Okay, so that's that one. What was our next show that I'm reminding you? Then we built it. Okay, this was when we actually started putting the board into the box, and we're starting to go from there. Which one was this for? Building the custom loop with the ASRock PG Nova in a Lian Li 011XO EVXO XL. All right, so then we finally got back to this because I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about this. This looks like expansion slots, and it is. It built on the other videos that we watched. This one being at least an 8-bit slot here, right? Yes, it's PCIe 3.0 to 8, but it was using the U2s. All right. Now, if you remember, and you may not, it depends. It's a long time ago. We talked when we were doing the memory and the drives and the slots. We talked about the B and the M slots, right? And so we were talking about a SATA drive. You could have internal SATA drive, still going to be limited to SATA speeds. It's going to look like an NVMe, but it's going to be slotted differently. Normally, I see 2 slots on those SATA drives, and they're going to be a lot slower than NVMe's. With a non-volatile memory express, those that go into the M.2 with the other slot, the M slot. What this thing does is it has something that looks very much like a regular SATA drive, except that it runs at NVMe speeds. Isn't that special? So you get the full benefit of something that looks very much like a SATA drive, but it's going to run a lot faster, and that's the U.2s. The problem is, and the reason I didn't get to them in the first time, is because they're very expensive. They tend to be very expensive, the U.2 drives. But we could do that. All right, what was our next video we looked at? All right, here's where we go. We're down to the brass tacks, if we're down to the hog ringing, if it were. This is a snapshot from the video when we're actually putting it into the case, the Lian Li case, and it's sitting here by itself before this back panel actually gets mounted inside the case. And just for a quick review, we have our crucial T705 that we waited forever to get right there. Let's zoom that in a little bit. Waited for this. This is Gen 5. It's pretty well much, as far as I can tell, the top of the line for an NVMe Gen 5 drive. As this is a big one, it's 4 terabytes, so I got plenty of room for the Windows 11 and the data drive that sits in the upper partition. Then this one was a 1 terabyte drive, which we got free when we bought our processor, and so we have our Windows 11 running on it with the data section on top of that, a separate data partition on top of that one, because we mirrored everything off of this onto this drive by the time this drive we finally bought it. That left us our Ubuntu, our Linux, Linux Mint we have on this drive, and then we have our 3 that we built with for our RAID with. We had 2 of them already, right? Because we backed up early in the season trying to get off the optical drive onto these externals. That was a good video, but 2 terabytes wasn't enough. We had to use 2, and then once we got 2, we just decided, well, we just RAID this bad boy and be a lot faster, and then we'll use an external drive like this for our actual data loss prevention. Right now with the RAID, all we're doing is we're doing drive loss prevention. We're with the redundancy of a RAID 5 on there, 3 drives, we get the equivalent of 2 of those drives added together, so 2 terabytes apiece from the 770s. That gives us 4 plus the for the stripe, for the parity for the stripe. That gives us we need 3 drives for that. Works great. If any one of those drives fails, we can still rebuild her. We can $6 million man it. Hey, appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, if you will, subscribe to the channel, either the YouTube or the Rumble channel, which this appears in. And if you can, check the notification bell or settings to make sure that you get notified when new videos are posted. Appreciate it. That gives us we need 3 drives for that. Works great. If any one of those drives fails, we can still rebuild her. We can $6 million man it. And we still have 3 operating systems to play with. Back over here at this picture. Now I've got one more picture that we'll refer to. Get up here. And it's this one down here. Because we talked about, as we selected this early from all of these videos and everything we brought together, I made one simple mistake. Because I decided to build the RAID as the project was going in. We put our T705 here. That's our main operating system, right off the chipset, high speed, Gen 5. This one is off of the CPU as well, but it's Gen 4, the same on both of these boards. We don't lose anything on our video card. And we put this one here, that's our Linux, because we started out to get this board. And this is easy access because we don't have to pull the heatsink off, this big slab off. So we just went and put our Linux right here, right? But just as soon as we slotted up right here, our chipset stole the 4 lanes that were going to this drive right here and put it on that expansion card. Something we talked about in perpetuity. We just nailed this thing. And here I had already put the Linux drive in over here in this slot. I already had the Windows mirrored from the original experiment and building on this one to here, and then put Windows 10 back on this one. So I just populated the empty slots. And as it happens, my RAID worked beautifully right up until the time that I was going to back up for the second edition on the WD Blue, the 4 terabyte that we're using to back up for our offsite copy, right? Because that's our data prevention, is getting it offsite. Our drive prevention is the RAID. And I just, right there in that picture that we just showed you, here I am putting her in the box, and I'm not thinking. And as soon as I slot this, I lose this drive and my RAID breaks. Now, how do we fix it? Well, that is our question. How do we fix it when our RAID's already built, everything's set up? Shout it in the back. Well, I can hear you through the internet. Well, it's real simple. I just swapped those two NVMEs, and since this is a software RAID, not a hardware RAID, when I did that, when I took this dude out here, the 310, the P310 Crucial here, this little half a terabyte, put him here, and put this 770 right over here, my RAID works fine. And then when I use that slot, all I do is I lose the Linux operating system, which if I'm not running on it, I'm not missing it anyway. So it's a bonehead move, I know. But sometimes you get out over your skis when you're going real fast. And in one of these videos, I'm both the producer that I have to edit the videos later on, and I star it, I got to talk it, I got to plan it, I got to be the engineer for all this stuff, and sometimes it just sneaks ahead of me. And really, like I said, I had just gotten those two backup copies off onto another drive, the data section of that 705 Crucial. And I was able then to copy it directly on here before I actually built the RAID. So I didn't notice it until the next time I wanted to update my going to be offsite copy. It's like, uh-oh, where'd my RAID go? It's a face palm, if you will, moment. It's like, how could anybody be that stupid to do something like that, especially when they know better? And even then I didn't do anything with it, because I just popped that into this guy right here off of the card into an external. And since it's just an update, it didn't take it long. I just stringed it off. And I think I'm going to leave it like that, simply because I don't have to then take the glass off the box to put the card in, to put the little by 4 NVMe expansion card in there. I can do it now if I want to, or I can leave it in there. But anyway, I thought my embarrassment might be your chuckle. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you in another show. We're done. Thank you.